It started on a crisp fall morning in Cedarwood, a small town where everybody knew each other's name. The buses had just rolled in, kids were bouncing toward the front doors with backpacks half unzipped, and Principal Marcus Ellison, green polo under his navy blazer, coffee in hand, was doing what he always did, greeting every child by name. He'd been running Cedarwood Elementary for 8 years, and in that time, he'd turned it from a struggling school into a place parents actually fought to get their kids into. Marcus had that gift he remembered, who had a spelling test, whose grandma was sick, who needed a little pep talk before math. He was steady, the kind of man who made kids feel safe just by being in the hallway. But that morning, safety was about to shatter, because right there in the parking lot, Officer Brent Mallory stepped into Marcus's path. Tall, square-jawed eyes, cold enough to freeze a room. Without a word, he grabbed Marcus by the shoulder and slammed him against the brick wall. "What are you doing here?" the officer barked. Marcus blinked, stunned, his coffee spilling across the concrete. I, I work here," he said quietly, his badge catching the morning light. "Identification. Now." Mallory's voice had that sharp, dismissive edge, the kind that says he'd already made up his mind. Marcus reached slowly into his jacket pocket. "Officer, I'm Marcus Ellison, principal of this school. We've met. Don't care what you think." Mallory snapped, tightening his grip. By then, the kids had stopped walking. Conversations died down. A fifth grader named Jamal froze mid-step, backpack sliding off his shoulder, eyes locked on the man who had helped him learn to read last year. "Mr. Ellison," he called out, his voice shaking. Marcus tried to keep calm for the kid's sake. "Officer, I'll show you my license, my district ID. These could be fake," Mallory sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. And in that moment, it was clear this wasn't about ID. It was about power, about reminding a black man where Mallory thought he belonged. The cuffs snapped around Marcus's wrist, that metallic clink echoing across the lot. Little Emma, a third grader who just won a kindness award, burst into tears. A teacher dropped his bag of worksheets that fluttered across the pavement like confetti at the world's cruelest parade. Marcus looked into Jamal's phone camera, his voice steady, though his heart was pounding. "Remember what we talked about in assembly," he told the kids. "Sometimes good people have to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard." That line, captured on shaky kid camera, would later be played across the nation. By noon, the video had gone viral. By afternoon, the school cafeteria wasn't buzzing with lunch chatter. It was humming with something else. The kids were holding council. Emma, still blotchy-eyed, slammed her juice box down and said, "When Mr. Ellison taught us about Rosa Parks, he said regular people sometimes have to do brave things. What if, what if we did something too?" "What, like a protest?" Jamal asked, clutching his mom's old phone. Sophia chimed in, her eyes blazing. "We could stay here, not go to class, show them kids have voices." The teachers nearby didn't know whether to shut it down or step back. But these weren't tantrums. They were 10-year-olds talking about justice, raw and real. Jamal pulled a crumpled notebook from his bag and read aloud. "Dear people in charge, our principal is the best man we know. He helps us, he never yells, he comes to our games. What happened this morning was wrong. We want the officer to say sorry. We want grown-ups to listen. And we want Mr. Ellison to know we love him." By the time the bell rang, nearly 100 kids were sitting shoulder to shoulder in that cafeteria, refusing to budge. Peaceful, determined. The next morning, it spilled into the parking lot. Hand-painted signs, "Justice for Mr. Ellison, kids know right from wrong," rose above a sea of tiny faces. Parents brought water bottles. Older cousins from the middle school showed up in solidarity. By 8:30, 500 students had walked out. And then came the moment nobody expected, the mayor herself stepping out of a black sedan, flanked by aides and the superintendent. She didn't stand on the podium. She didn't bark orders. She knelt down right there on the asphalt to meet the kids at eye level. "I hear you," she said. "Tell me what justice means to you." Emma raised her hand like it was a classroom. "It means when someone does something wrong, they admit it and they learn to do better." Sophia added, It means kids get to say what's fair and what's not. And Jamal, his voice steady, though his hands shook, said, "It means our principal deserves respect, not handcuffs." You could feel the air shift. The cameras caught it. The whole country saw it. Within days, the officer was off the force facing federal charges. But Marcus, he didn't walk away. Bruised shoulder cuff marks still red on his wrists, he stood in front of his students and said, "I thought my job was to teach you about fairness. Turns out you taught me what courage looks like." That photo, the one of hundreds of kids hugging their principal in the middle of the protest, ended up on the cover of magazines shared millions of times. Reporters called it the youngest civil rights demonstration in decades. Months later, Cedarwood Elementary was different. They'd opened a community policing center right inside the school. Kids formed a student justice council running peace circles, writing letters to the board. What started as humiliation in a parking lot had become a blueprint for how children could reshape an entire community. And Marcus, he carried on smiling at the front doors every morning. Maybe a little more tired, but with a new fire in his eyes. Here's the part that sticks with me. The system tried to bury him in shame, but it was the kids, the so-called powerless, who pulled him back up and said, "We see you. We stand with you." So let me ask you, when you hear this story, what side are you on? Do you believe kids should step in when adults fail? Or do you think they should have stayed quiet and let the grown-ups handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen someone misjudge a person because of how they looked? Did anyone stand up? Because if this story proves anything, it's that voices, no matter how small, can shake the ground under power. And if you believe that too, hit that like button, share this story, and let's keep the conversation alive. Justice doesn't just belong to the courts, it belongs to the community, to us, to you. It started on a crisp fall morning in Cedarwood, a small town where everybody knew each other's name. The buses had just rolled in, kids were bouncing toward the front doors with backpacks half unzipped, and Principal Marcus Ellison, green polo under his navy blazer, coffee in hand, was doing what he always did, greeting every child by name. He'd been running Cedarwood Elementary for 8 years, and in that time, he'd turned it from a struggling school into a place parents actually fought to get their kids into. Marcus had that gift he remembered, who had a spelling test, whose grandma was sick, who needed a little pep talk before math. He was steady, the kind of man who made kids feel safe just by being in the hallway. But that morning, safety was about to shatter. Because right there in the parking lot, Officer Brent Mallory stepped into Marcus's path. Tall, square-jawed eyes, cold enough to freeze a room. Without a word, he grabbed Marcus by the shoulder and slammed him against the brick wall. "What are you doing here?" the officer barked. Marcus blinked, stunned, his coffee spilling across the concrete. I work here," he said quietly, his badge catching